Join us as we embark on a journey to uncover the secrets of the first Australians, the oldest continuous cultures on Earth. This story begins long before recorded history and a land shaped by ancient forces, where people lived in harmony with their environment for tens of thousands of years. These were the first Australians, the original custodians of this vast and diverse continent. Long before pyramids were built or empires rose and fell, the ancestors of Australia's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples thrived on this land. Recent archaeological evidence suggests human presence in Australia as far back as 65,000 years ago. This deep history makes Indigenous Australians the custodians of the oldest continuous culture known to humanity. The connection between these peoples and their environment is profound. Their stories are etched into the land through songlines, oral histories, and cultural practices that continue to guide their way of life today. Australia's landscapes tell their own story, from the red deserts of the outback to the lush rainforests of the north, from the rugged mountain ranges to the coastal plains. Each region is intertwined with the cultural identity of the groups who have called it home. The dreaming, or Dreamtime, forms the foundation of this worldview. It is a spiritual framework that explains creation, guides behavior, and links every aspect of life to the natural world. Understanding the first Australians means seeing the land not as property, but as kin, as teacher, as sacred. Every tree, river, animal, and rock holds meaning. The land is not owned, but belongs to the people through a shared custodianship that is both practical and spiritual. These beliefs have guided sustainable living practices for millennia and continue to shape the lives of many Indigenous Australians today. In recent years, groundbreaking archaeological discoveries have challenged everything we thought we knew about the first Australians. Far from being simple nomadic tribes, these peoples demonstrated complex social structures, spiritual systems, and advanced technological knowledge long before outside contact. Among the most striking discoveries are ancient rock art sites found across the continent. Some of these artworks, like those in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, are believed to be among the oldest in the world. They depict animals, human figures, and spiritual beings, capturing moments of history and mythology in vibrant ochre. These artworks are not mere decorations. They are archives of knowledge, history books written on stone, offering insight into cultural practices, migrations, and beliefs over tens of thousands of years. Equally significant are the burial sites uncovered in places like Lake Mungo, New South Wales. Here, archaeologists discovered the remains of Mungo man and Mungo lady, estimated to be over 40,000 years old. These discoveries provide not only evidence of early habitation, but also of complex mortuary rituals and respect for the dead. The care with which these individuals were buried speaks to a sophisticated society with spiritual depth. Tools and artifacts found at these sites reveal early mastery of technology. Stone tools, grindstones for processing seeds, and even fish traps demonstrate an intimate knowledge of the environment and its resources. In Brewarina, New South Wales, a system of ancient stone fish traps built along the Barwon River is considered one of the oldest human-made structures in the world. These traps show an engineering intelligence and environmental adaptation rarely acknowledged in mainstream histories. What these discoveries affirm is cultural continuity. For tens of thousands of years, knowledge has been passed down through storytelling, ceremony, and direct teaching. Far from being lost to time, this knowledge persists and adapts, embedded in language, ritual, and the memory of place. It tells us that the first Australians did not simply survive on the land. They understood it deeply, managing its resources and maintaining its balance through carefully honed cultural systems. This ancient wisdom is not confined to the past. It lives on in the sustainable practices that Indigenous communities have developed and maintained for millennia. These practices reflect a deep understanding of ecology, climate, and the cyclical rhythms of the land. From fire stick farming to water conservation, Indigenous Australians have long practiced methods that nurture rather than exploit their environment. Fire stick farming, also known as cultural burning, involves the controlled use of fire to manage landscapes. This technique reduces the risk of catastrophic wildfires, encourages new growth, and supports biodiversity. Far from being destructive, these burns are carefully planned and timed to enhance the land's productivity. This practice is now gaining recognition among modern land management agencies as a valuable tool in the fight against climate change and bushfires. Traditional knowledge systems also include methods for sustainable agriculture. In arid and semi-arid regions, Indigenous Australians developed ingenious ways of cultivating and harvesting native plants. They used seasonal calendars based on celestial movements and environmental indicators to guide planting and harvesting. These practices ensured that food sources were not depleted and that ecosystems remained in balance. Water management was another area of expertise. In some regions, complex networks of wells, channels, and storage systems were created to ensure a reliable supply of water, even during dry seasons. These techniques show a deep understanding of hydrology and landscape management that modern science is only beginning to fully appreciate. Beyond practical skills, these knowledge systems are embedded in cultural and spiritual frameworks that emphasize respect for nature. The belief that all elements of the environment are interconnected and sentient fosters a sense of responsibility and care. This worldview promotes stewardship over exploitation, resilience over dominance. In an age of environmental crisis, there is much the world can learn from the wisdom of Indigenous Australians. Yet despite their enduring contributions, the first Australians have faced centuries of dispossession, marginalisation, and erasure. The arrival of European colonizers in 1788 marked the beginning of a long and painful history of displacement and cultural suppression. Lands were taken, languages banned, children removed from their families. These policies aimed to erase Indigenous identities and replace them with foreign ideals. The consequences of colonization are still felt today. Indigenous Australians experience significant disparities in health, education, employment, and incarceration rates. These challenges are not due to any lack of resilience or ability, but rather the legacy of systemic discrimination and the failure of successive governments to honour Indigenous rights. Despite this, Indigenous communities have never stopped fighting for recognition, justice, and self-determination. Activists, artists, and leaders continue to raise their voices and demand truth-telling about the nation's history. The push for constitutional recognition and a voice to Parliament reflects the desire for meaningful inclusion in decision-making processes that affect Indigenous lives and futures. Truth-telling is a critical step in the journey toward reconciliation. It involves acknowledging the full scope of Australia's colonial history, including the massacres, forced removals, and cultural destruction that occurred. It means listening to Indigenous voices and valuing their stories as central to the national narrative. Only through honest reflection can a more equitable and inclusive future be built. Reconciliation is not just a political or legal process, it is a personal and cultural one. It involves building relationships based on mutual respect, understanding, and shared humanity. It calls on all Australians to learn about and from the first peoples of this land, to recognise their contributions, and to support their ongoing efforts to preserve and revitalise their cultures. Today, the resilience of Indigenous Australians shines through in countless ways. Across the continent, communities are reclaiming their languages, reviving their ceremonies, and strengthening their cultural identities. Traditional practices are being taught to younger generations, ensuring that the wisdom of the elders continues to guide the future. Indigenous art is one of the most powerful expressions of this cultural resurgence, from dot paintings that map ancestral stories to contemporary installations that confront colonial legacies. Indigenous artists are sharing their perspectives with the world. Their work is not only beautiful, it is deeply political and profoundly rooted in cultural knowledge. Activists and advocates are using their platforms to amplify Indigenous voices and challenge injustice. They are pushing for land rights, treaty processes, and policies that reflect Indigenous worldviews. Their leadership is shaping a new vision for Australia, one that honours the past while looking boldly toward the future. Education is another key to this transformation. Schools, universities, and institutions are beginning to include Indigenous perspectives in their curricula. This helps to build cultural competence, foster respect, and empower future generations to become allies and advocates for change. As we look forward, we are reminded that the story of the first Australians is not one of disappearance, but of continuity, adaptation, and strength. Their cultures have survived against overwhelming odds, not because they were static, but because they were dynamic and deeply rooted in place and community. The first Australians are not relics of the past. They are innovators, leaders, and storytellers whose knowledge holds vital answers to the challenges we face today. Their connection to the land offers a model of sustainability and respect that modern society urgently needs. By honouring and learning from the first Australians, we not only enrich the understanding of history, we also build a more just and inclusive future. Their legacy is not only a gift to Australia, but to the world. Let us walk together, with open hearts and open minds, toward a future where the wisdom of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth is celebrated, protected, and passed on to generations yet to come.